Hi everybody, my name is Mark Lamerty, Head of Customer Education at Astronomer, and I'm super excited to see you for this YouTube series where you will discover everything you need about the best way to integrate your DBT workflows with Airflow. And in that first video, you will discover why you should use Cosmos for DBT on Apache Airflow and what exactly is Cosmos. If you have already integrated your DBT workflows with your Airflow DAGs but you are not using Cosmos, there is a good chance that you are not doing it in the best possible way. But stick with me, you will learn more in the rest of the video. So let's begin. First, what is DBT and DBT Core? I'm pretty sure you already know that, but DBT is widely used in the tech industry for transforming data using SQL requests, or more specifically, I would say SQL templates. So DBT Core is an open source library for analytics engineering that helps users like you and me build interdependent SQL models for in-warehouse data transformation using ephemeral compute of data warehouses. Now, if we look at orchestrating DBT workflows with Airflow, I'm pretty sure you are familiar with Airflow, but still keep in mind that Airflow is Python based and it helps you to author, schedule and monitor your workflows. It is the largest orchestrator, open source orchestrator today in the industry, and you can do pretty much whatever you want with it because it is open source. So if you want to add any features to it, you can do that. You are not logged in. Then you have DBT Core, which is again open source, and it offers a simple intuitive interface for SQL-based data transformations. Now, let's take a look at the different options that you have to orchestrate your DBT workflows with Airflow. And the first way is by using the BashOperator, and maybe it is your case today. As you may know, DBT brings many different commands such as dbt seed, dbt run, dbt test, dbt deps, dbt clone, and so on. And the idea of using the BashOperator here is to run those commands through it, because the BashOperator helps you to run bash commands. So here you run the dbt commands. Then the second option is to use the dbt Cloud Airflow provider. The dbt Cloud Airflow provider provides many different operators that you can use to run and orchestrate your dbt workflows in dbt Cloud. Okay, so that doesn't work with dbt Core in local. You have to use dbt Cloud. And that's what you can see here. It is best for triggering jobs in dbt Cloud. Now, if you are not using dbt Cloud, you can use Astronomer Cosmos, which is the best way if you want to convert your DBT resources, DBT workflows into Airflow DAGs. But I will show you that in a second. First, let's focus on the BashOperator, which is the worst way. As you can see on the left, you have the corresponding code. So you will basically use the BashOperator for every DBT command that you want to run. Here dbt seed, then dbt run, and finally dbt test. And on the Airflow UI, you will see that, so 3 tasks, dbt seed, dbt run, and dbt test. There is a lot to say here, but you can agree with me that you have no idea what you are orchestrating here. What is the underlying DBT workflow that you are orchestrating? You have no observability, no control over it. You don't know exactly what is going on. You are just going to run some dbt commands and pray that everything will work fine. So that's why this is the worst way. Then a better way is by using the dbt Cloud provider. When I say it is better, it's because you have some dedicated operators to better manage your DBT workflows on dbt Cloud. For example, dbt Cloud run job operator allows you to trigger a run of a dbt Cloud job, and then automatically it checks the jobs to give you the final state, failed or success. But there are still some limitations. For example, if the job fails, then you will have to go on the user interface in dbt Cloud to check the issue and then restart the job or restart some dbt commands and so on. So you won't be able to do that from the Airflow UI. And also, as you can see on the right, you still don't have the full picture of your dbt workflow. If you want to have that, you need to go on the UI of dbt Cloud. And finally, it works only with dbt Cloud and not dbt Core. So that's why the best way, which I believe is truly the best way, is by using Cosmos. So with Cosmos, what you're going to do is to transform your DBT workflow into a DAG. And as you can see on the left, you just pass some configuration settings, such as the profile, where the project is, and so on. And then automatically, Cosmos translates your DBT workflow into a beautiful Airflow DAG. And all of a sudden, as you can see on the right, you have the full picture of your DBT workflow, and each command of that dbt workflow becomes a task in an Airflow DAG. So you can clearly see on the left that you have the seeds, right? And then you have the different models in order to generate the staging, payments, orders, and customers. And finally, on the right, you have some other commands in order to get the orders and customers final tables. And all of that right on the Airflow UI. So if you want to restart a given task or use some Airflow features such as the retry mechanism and so on, you can do that as well. So this is why Cosmos is so powerful and better to use than any other methods. So let me give you a quick overview of Cosmos. So first, I would like to emphasize that Astronomer Cosmos is an open source provider package. Okay, anyone can use it. You don't have to be an Astronomer customer, but obviously if you are, then you will get some additional benefits if you run Airflow and Cosmos on Astro. But it allows you to integrate dbt jobs into Airflow by automatically creating Airflow tasks from dbt models. So you can turn any dbt core projects into standalone DAGs or task groups. Okay, you don't have to transform your entire dbt workflow as a DAG. You can just transform it as a task group and then plug in it into another DAG. The goal of Cosmos is to make the orchestration of your dbt workflows effortless, reliable, and scalable. Also, there are some key features, for example, scheduling, so you can use Airflow data-aware scheduling and Airflow sensors to run models depending on other events in your data ecosystem. Again, you can turn each dbt model into a task and dbt core projects into Airflow DAGs or task groups. Also, you have much more observability over any other methods because you have access to Airflow features such as retries and error notifications, as well as full observability into past runs directly in the Airflow UI, and you can view dbt docs directly in the Airflow UI. You have some agility as well because now you can run dbt tests on tables created by individual models immediately after a model has completed. And that's what you saw right in the previous slide right here. Each time we materialize a model, we run some tests. You have the run and then the test for every table. Then last but not least, you benefit from the connection management system of Airflow. You can run dbt projects using Airflow connections instead of dbt profiles. And you can store all of your connections in one place directly within Airflow or by using a secret backend, which is pretty cool. Here is a sneak peek of the dbt JFL shop workflow that you can translate using Cosmos into a beautiful Airflow DAG, as you can see on the right, with the tasks and task groups corresponding to your different dbt models. But don't worry, you will do that in action in the next video. So now I just would like to finish on the differences between the BashOperator, the dbt cloud provider, and the Cosmos methods. So let's begin by the pros and cons of each one. First, with the BashOperator and the dbt cloud provider, it is pretty hard to identify failing dbt node, right? Like which dbt model, for example, is failing. Whereas with Cosmos, you will be able to identify that right on the Airflow UI. Then you have some very inefficient retry mechanisms by using the BashOperator or the dbt cloud provider, whereas with Cosmos, you benefit from the retry mechanism of Airflow. So obviously it is more efficient. Then for the BashOperator and the dbt cloud provider, it is faster for those methods to parse your dbt workflows than Cosmos because obviously it needs to translate your dbt workflows into DAGs. Then the BashOperator and the dbt cloud provider use fewer worker slots than if you use Cosmos. With Cosmos, worker slots are proportional to dbt nodes, which makes sense as you have one task per dbt node, which is not the case with dbt cloud provider or BashOperator. Then for both the BashOperator and Cosmos, the process is synchronous for running your dbt workflow, whereas with dbt cloud, you have the option to run your dbt workflow asynchronously. If you use the BashOperator or the Cosmos methods, then you are not vendor lock-in, whereas if you use dbt cloud provider, obviously you are vendor lock-in as you are in the cloud. Then for the downstream use cases, they depend on every dbt node succeeding for both the BashOperator and the dbt cloud provider, whereas it's not the case with Cosmos. If you want to do something else after a specific dbt node succeeds, you can do that. Okay, you have way more flexibility. And finally, for both the BashOperator and Cosmos, you have one database connection per dbt command or per task. Whereas with the dbt cloud provider, it uses a single database connection to run all job transformations. So it's a little bit more efficient. So that's it about the differences between all of the methods. Again, I recommend you to use Cosmos, and you will understand better why in the next video, where you will create an Airflow project and integrate a dbt workflow using Cosmos. I see you in the next one.